About 2 hours outside what is considered the New York City metro area, in a place just large enough to qualify as a town, is a train station. I've occasionally used it, taking the train into the city with friends for something like a concert or a fun weekend out when I was older. Now, at the age of 18 and needing a job, I found myself submitting an application to work there. To my delight, the interview was straightforward and my work as a waitress seemed sufficient background in the customer service industry because I got the job without needing to jump through any hoops. Jobs are always in short supply, living in a small town, especially the variety of your options. In a big city, there are tons of businesses to choose from, but here the vast majority weren't great. Many were labor-intensive, and while I can lift 50 pounds, I'm not large by any stretch of the word, and my arms wouldn't be happy about it. What I liked about the night shift at a train station was that I wouldn't have to deal with too many people, but I'd have enough to keep myself occupied. Also, if any of the customers had an issue, I was the only one on staff, and therefore the highest authority there. I could politely but firmly ask someone to leave if they became a problem. The only concern I had was the list of rules that I was given when I started working there. There were rumors about working at the station at night, but I had ascribed them to the boredom of living in a small town. You make your own entertainment, lacking in things to do, and often that involves gossip and tall tales. Nevertheless, I came in for a few hours during a day shift for training, and after my work ethic and such was met with his approval, and I was officially hired, I was given a laminated sheet of paper by my boss, listing what he referred to as important special rules. Rule 1. An old woman will arrive at the station at 2:47 a.m. She will not have enough money to pay the fare. Let her in anyway. Rule 2. She will then board an unscheduled train at 3 a.m. Do not attempt to turn her away under any circumstances. Rule 3. A man in a trench coat will occasionally come to the booth to ask about trains that go to Los Angeles. Be respectful and polite to him when you explain our trains don't go that far. Rule 4. If a customer pays with anything other than money, no matter what it is, accept it and write down the details in the ledger. Rule 5. A short woman with long hair will often appear at 4:30 a.m. and stand waiting for a train before leaving. Never disturb her or attempt to speak to her. Rule 6. If the lights go out, turn on the lantern and proceed with business as normal. Do not go into the lobby for any reason. Rule 7. It is rare, but a man dressed professionally with a suitcase sometimes comes into the station lobby and attempts to get something from one of the vending machines without paying. Allow him to get angry with the machine and don't bother him. He will leave after a few minutes. Rule 8. If a large group of teenagers that look dressed for a funeral enter the station, go through the motions to sell them tickets as usual, even though they won't pay. Ring up the transactions as $0.00. Rule 9. If you start to hear the noise of a crowded station but no one is there, turn off the lights in your booth and sit on the floor. Don't look out at the lobby. If someone attempts to get your attention, ignore them. I'll admit, reading over them prompted me to joke. I like a good prank as much as the next person, but this feels like hazing. His facial expression didn't change, though. My boss, the manager of the station, was a portly man with thick salt and pepper hair, who always had a 5 o'clock shadow when I see him late at night. His wrinkly face looked deadly serious. This isn't hazing. I know you've heard the odd anecdote here or there, and I'm here to tell you that many of the things you've heard are true. Okay? It's extremely important that you follow every one of these rules. I don't care if you think they're total bunk. Act as if I'm watching over your shoulder. All right? Considering my paycheck was riding on it, I assured him that I would do just that. For all I knew, these rules were the equivalent of musicians putting riders into their contracts to make sure the person reading it was attentive to details. If they missed something small and seemingly trivial, it was possible or even likely that they would miss something big and important. The only thing that was strange was that from midnight to 5 a.m., no trains ran at the station, so there shouldn't have been any customers during that span of time. Then, during my second shift, the woman arrived. I'd been reading a worn paperback I'd gotten at the second-hand store. A fun sci-fi story that kept my attention and made the long hours pass more quickly. Then I was startled when she tapped on the glass, having not heard the sound of the heavy lobby door opening and shutting. "Oh, I'm sorry. Can I help?" The small digital clock on my desk read 2:47 a.m. The woman was small and slim, her hair thin and curly with that odd purplish tint some older people go for at the salon. She was smiling, revealing a set of uncomfortable-looking dentures, and wore a summer dress with green and yellow flowers, even though it was probably in the 40s outside. "Hello, dear," she said. "I need a ticket to Albany, please." "Sure thing." I glanced around the lobby, but there was no one else there. With a mental shrug, I went into the system on my computer and brought up the destination, selecting a ticket and adjusting it so the price was free. "Here you go. Have a good night," I said with my customer service smile. "Thank you, dear," she replied. She picked up a cane that I hadn't seen resting against the booth and slowly made her way to the door. With surprising ease, considering her slight figure, she pushed it open and went outside. The door shut behind her, the sound of the latch echoing in the empty room, and I blew a raspberry at the unclimactic event. Then at 2:57 a.m., I made what was probably an unwise decision. I decided to go watch the woman to see if she'd left. Coming out through the door that let me into the lobby, I then gently pressed the bar to unlatch the door that led to the platform and pushed it open. Then I slowly and quietly shut it behind me. Looking down the platform, I saw her waiting patiently for a train that would never arrive. I made a small contemplative sound before leaning against the wall, staring at her. I wondered if it was some sort of tradition for her, off schedule, so she wouldn't run into anyone else. Or possibly she was senile, and some part of her brain made her come to the station for a train that had never run and never would. That was unlikely, I figured, since a senile old woman wouldn't, or at least shouldn't, be allowed to go to a train station on her own. Then came the moment I was waiting for, 3 a.m. The large analog clock on the platform showed the time, and as soon as the minute hand reached the 12, the woman moved. Walking steadily forward, she got closer and closer to the edge of the platform, and I became more and more concerned. When she was 2 feet from the edge, I worriedly called out, "Ma'am!" But she didn't falter her pace. Immediately, my pace grew faster, and when her right foot lifted and made to set down on empty air, my voice was panicked as I repeated, "Ma'am!" "Stop," she did, slowly turning to look at me. To my utter shock, it appeared that she was standing on nothing, putting half her body weight and her cane on a floor that wasn't there. But that didn't keep my attention for long. I'd stumbled to a stop when she had come to a halt, and I was a good 20 feet away from her, but from that distance, it looked like there was something wrong with her eyes. There was no color to the iris, and no white around them. They were completely black. "Excuse me?" she rumbled. Something in her tone sent a shiver down my spine and made the hairs on the back of my neck prickle, as if an icy wind had struck me. I found myself instinctively stammering, "Sorry," and staring at her in shock, frozen in place. The seconds ticked by, and then she finally turned her gaze forward and away from me, and I felt like a physical weight had been lifted. Then she took 2 more steps into empty air and disappeared. I stood there, staring at the spot where she'd vanished for a good minute, going over everything that had happened and feeling like I'd dodged a bullet. That's when I realized I'd technically broken the rule. Do not attempt to turn her away under any circumstances. Telling her to stop walking was a violation. Perhaps it was my reflexive apology that saved me from her wrath, if there were indeed repercussions to breaking the rule. Finally, I slowly turned and walked back inside, unlocking the door to the booth with the key on my belt, and returning to my seat. Sitting in the silence that now felt eerie, I went over what had happened in my head several times. Was she a ghost? A demon? Something else? I had no idea, but I found myself questioning if the job was worth the risk if these sorts of things happened often. Then again, I had the list of rules. All I needed to do was follow them, right? It was possible that I'd almost made an extreme mistake that night, but everything had worked out in the end. Now I knew that the rules I'd been given were entirely serious, so I took in and let out a long breath, picked up my book and started reading where I'd left off. My name is Coulson. I am a 19-year-old in college. For reasons of privacy, I will not name my city or state or give further personal details. But just a heads up, ghosts, demons, or whatever the hell you call them, are real. My neighborhood is pretty sparsely populated, so new people keep moving in every year. This year specifically, a rich family built a 3-floor mansion next to my humble, small house. The family had 2 daughters and 3 sons, all of varying ages from 5 to 20. They had 2 German Shepherd dogs. The parents seemed old and grumpy, while the children, I know it might sound awkward, and I have never used this word to describe a person, looked straight up evil. They were friendly towards me and invited me over a couple of times to chill out at their mansion. I appreciated that gesture. One day, the mum asked me if I could babysit their youngest son while they were out for their vacation. Being a broke college student, I accepted the offer, since the pay was very high, and all I had to do was laze around the house the whole night. I said I would, so when the day came, I took my phone and charger and went to their house. There was always something off about it. I mean, it was clean, expensive, and luxurious, but the colors looked a bit off. A bit grey and darker than you'd imagine a mansion to be, even darker than usual. When they were leaving, the oldest sibling casually handed me a piece of paper. I asked, "What is this?" He said, "It's just a list of rules to follow. Nothing too crazy, but I cannot emphasize enough how important they are. Call us if you break a rule." He then walked away, leaving me with a lot of questions. When I heard their car engine start, I started reading the rules. Note: follow these rules word for word and do not break a single one. If you do, go hide in the closet in the master bedroom of the 2nd floor of the house and call us. Also, you can help yourself with anything from any of the fridges. Just do not open any fridge from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Now we know you can take care of a baby, but the other most important rules are: Rule 1. We have left all of the dogs outside the house in our backyard. If you see a dog sitting inside the house, shoot it immediately. There is a pistol in the washing machine, because it isn't a dog. Rule 2. If the lights start to flicker, take the baby and lock yourself in the bathroom on the 3rd floor. Failure in doing so within 20 seconds will cause hallucinations. Get in the closet and call us. Rule 3. As already mentioned, do not open the fridge between the hours of 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. If you do, you have 10 seconds to run to the closet, otherwise you will suffer a fate worse than death. Rule 4. If you hear the dogs barking all at once, close your eyes for 10 minutes. Don't worry. The baby will be fine. You might hear sniffing around you. Do not flinch. Rule 5. Do not leave the baby unattended for more than 20 minutes at a time. Something is watching you at all times. They might not like the irresponsibility. I almost burst out laughing. If this was a prank, it was a good one, and a sick one. I nestled into the sofa kept in the living room and started pouring a glass of cola. When the lights started flickering, I stopped. My instincts screamed at me to run, and so I did. I took the baby and ran to the bathroom. I stood beside the bathtub, still, listening for any further commotion, when I tripped on a puddle of water below me. Below the bathtub was a note. It read, "If they have hired you for babysitting, and you found this, please just open the goddamn door and run. Run as fast as you can. As far as you can. These people have not gone on a vacation. They have gone away because on every full moon night, they leave these misleading rules. Some of them, like Rule 1 and Rule 4, are intended to kill you. They are offering you as a sacrifice to God knows which demon. I somehow survived and broke back into the mansion to leave this note. The rules are just there to comfort you. When you see or hear strange things, you will not survive the ordeal. I got lucky because I did not read the rules. Rule 1 happened to me and I survived. But if I were you, I wouldn't take chances." I looked outside. It was a full moon night. I heard knocking on the bathroom door. "First time at graveyard duty, huh?" "Yes." I nodded with an apprehensive smile, walking alongside my coworker. Nervously, I continued fiddling with my ID as we made our way towards my supposed desk. It had been 3 months since I started working as a clerk at this hospital nearby, and today was my first ever graveyard shift. As ridiculous as it was that non-medical staff also had to put up with this kind of schedule, the pay was good enough to get me by with the bills, so I wouldn't complain that much. Besides, what's a better working environment in a jam-packed hospital like this one, if not a calm night duty once in a while? I've had my fair share of experiences with a handful of rude patients and fellow clerks during the day, so some peace and quiet would be really nice without resorting to quitting so soon. Nervous? Anne chuckled. At least I remembered her name was Anne. With the number of staff our department had, it was sometimes inevitable to forget a few faces. Yes, I mean, I have little idea about what to do during these times after all. That's right, morning duties typically consisted of handling the patient's inquiries, paperwork, typing test results, and then just getting buried into more paperwork. Hopefully this shift wasn't as stressful. Turning around a corner, she glanced back. Don't worry, it's mostly answering late-night phone calls from the other departments, doing today's report, and she paused as we approached what looked like a large counter in the middle of a deserted hallway. Basically staying up late just to entertain some of the patient's stupid questions. Sounds lovely. You bet, she said, briefly flashing me a playful gaze. But there's more to that than meets the eye. Holding up a piece of paper right in front of my face, she proceeded to ask, "By the way, are you skeptical?" About what exactly?" She shrugged. "Oh, I don't know. Spirits? The supernatural?" I stared at the ceiling in contemplation before finally settling on an answer. I actually believe in them. Although I've never experienced something paranormal in my entire life. We're in a hospital, so I'm pretty sure there's bound to be some here. I also heard a few stories from the others. Seemingly satisfied with my reply, she waved the paper around. "You wouldn't have a problem following these then?" Anne laid it out on the desk for the world to see, and there I could make out typings of what looked like rules. Apparently, there's a whole bunch of them. And these are just a little something to help you survive the graveyard shift. She chirped and waited for me to start with the list. Thinking that there was no harm in doing so, my eyes curiously and carefully trailed each one. 1. Patients on this floor are rather ill-tempered, so we highly advise keeping your voices down. Absolutely no loud conversations of any sort, and no screaming. You wouldn't want to disturb most especially the old crazy lady from across the hall. I hummed in approval, mumbling, "Can't argue with that." I'd probably go crazy too if I couldn't get some good night's sleep. 2. If a little boy comes running to you, asks for your help regarding his ball or toy car, tell him that you last saw it in the elevator. Never ever try to investigate the source of the bloody screams that would ensue, even if they turn into pitiful cries for their parents. It took me a while to process this one. Weird, and sounds like being a dick, but okay. Children are spawns of Satan after all. Anne gave me an encouraging pat on the back. Now you're getting it. It's for a good reason anyway, you know. Squinting in confusion at her words, I tried to dismiss it and read another one. 3. Visiting hours are until 10 p.m. only. If anyone drops by to insist beyond that and ask for their dead relative, politely tell them off to the morgue. This gives you enough time to hide in any of the spare rooms before they come back. The peek holes on the doors are there for a reason. If you see the lights flickering on and off outside, it is safe to come out and carry on with your work. If you see the said person standing still and staring outside, keep quiet and wait for them to disappear, which should be in a few minutes. With that said, you shouldn't stay in any empty rooms far too long, or something else will be taking a peek at you. Heartbeat picking up pace at the odd and very specific rule, I snapped my head towards Anne. "All right, this is actually creepy. Did you type this?" "No, it's from the management, or at least I think it was." She pointed at the previous rule, clarifying, "Do take note you'd have to try different rooms, since some of them are locked. Just be really, really quick." Wait. So you're telling me that you've been working this shift and have been following this set of rules all this time? Her response was a swift nod. "Yup, who knows what would happen if you didn't, right? I wouldn't want to find out myself. Nothing's happened to me yet, and there's no problem in believing these, yeah?" Dubiously, I only continued on with the remaining ones. 4. Occasionally doctors would also come and go. If one comes up to you and did the same thing, like ask for a dead patient, kindly repeat the steps in Rule 3. Stay alert, they're faster. 5. Regarding rules 3 and 4, the rooms would randomly be locked or unlocked. Best to choose the right one. There is no janitor on this floor. If one does appear, fret not. He's only here to clean up their mess, and he's the least thing you should worry about. Gulping a bit, I prepared myself for the last one. Right before my eyes, the large words, 7. Psych, I'm just messing with you, greeted me by surprise. What? Returning my attention to my companion, I was met by a grinning Anne, who had her tongue stuck out like a child's, inwardly sighing in relief with my growing fear slowly dying down. I frowned. "Ugh, really?" she said with a chuckle. "You should have seen your face." On cue, the telephone rang. I mustered the coldest glare I could towards her, all the while placing the thing on my ears. "Whatever." "Nah, I got you," she giggled. "Shut up." I returned Anne's mischievous look with a roll of my eyes, leaning against the counter with my back facing her. Talk about almost shitting myself from a childish prank. Oh, I was going to get back at her. She'll see. But first, she was going to get my infamous silent treatment for scaring the wits out of me. "Hello, good evening. 3rd floor branch, how can I assist you?" The familiar voice on the other line, as well as the words that came out of her mouth, were enough to freeze me on the spot. my blood suddenly running cold as ice. "Where the hell are you? And what do you mean by third floor? I told you to stay in the lobby. I had to call every floor to find you. It's bad enough that I don't have your mobile number." The sudden lump on my throat was unbearable, especially when the peculiarity of my situation slowly dawned on me. But still, I had to make sure. Reluctantly, I asked, "Who's this?" I needed confirmation no matter how obvious it already was. "Who else? It's Anne. And what the hell are you doing answering from the third floor? That area's off limits." Tightening my grasp on the telephone as if it was some sort of lifeline, I could feel sheer terror instantly paralyzing every inch of my body, and I couldn't help but release a shaky breath. Out of instinct, I flipped the paper over, my eyes suddenly fixating on the bottom part. I finally noticed something there that only added to my increasing fear. The original number 7 was smudged, as if someone tried to erase the whole rule but decided against it at the last minute. The line was partially unreadable. I could only make out fragments of words in between the smudges, but enough to get the gist. 7. Stay vigil. Tend to imitate. You know, something about a conversation. They are harmless. You know nothing. If they find out, run. Too preoccupied with dread, I failed to notice the dark shadow looming behind me.